welcome back to the Hearthstone Global Games, where we just had one of the fastest series that I've seen, at least. Joining me once again is Cora, and next up is China versus Belgium. Now, Cora, you chose Greece, and I chose Czech Republic in the last series. I'm going to just remind you and everyone else that right now.
Yes.
So I won.
This is what I get for taking sides. This is why I'm normally neutral.
But this
I always
time,
lose.
you picked China, and I picked Belgium. Belgium are very much the underdogs. So how are you feeling about this game?
I'm feeling pretty good. China had a nice record through phase 1 of this tournament. It was actually the same record as Belgium, 3-2 match score. But looking at phase 2, China went 3-0. And Belgium was one of the few teams that made it through to stage 3 on a 1-2 match record for phase 2. So just looking at that, China has had a much better time throughout this tournament. But as we just saw, Czech Republic 3-0'd Greece, and Greece had been doing quite well since the first couple weeks of this tournament, so anything can certainly happen.
Yeah, Belgium definitely coming in as the underdog in stage 2, in case you weren't there with us. The top 2 teams from each group got through, and then the top 4 third-place finishes, which is how Belgium squeezed through with 1 win. Again, this is the Hearthstone Global Games format, stage 1, stage 2 both done, but now we're in top 16 single elimination bracket. We will show you the bracket once again in just a moment. But yeah, it's going to be China versus Belgium, and the winner of this game will face off against the Czech Republic next week. The winner of the previous game, which was Czech Republic versus Greece. There you go. There's the bracket.
And then, of course, all of this, all of the last, 12 weeks, 13 weeks of play has been leading up to the live finals that are going to be happening for the top 4 teams. So this is win and through to the top 8 for the remaining teams. And unfortunately, lose and you go home. So the stakes have never been higher than they are at this moment in time.
I believe all of those games that you just saw on page 2 of the bracket, we are actually doing today. So you're about to see a lot of players get eliminated. We are, of course, taking a short break after the series, but then when we're back, we're going to do the rest of it. But let's check out Team China and Team Belgium one last time. Jason, Joe, Nightwalk, Omega Zero, Lovely Chuk versus Maverick, Alec, Chinoise, and Arne. Anyone jump out at you in this roster, Cora?
I mean, just looking at the entire team from China, it's a storied team. But we did just see the Chinese players at HCT Championships sort of flounder a little bit. None of them made it through to the quarterfinals. And then from the Belgium, obviously, from the Belgium team, you have Chinoise and you have Maverick, who are going to be the 2 more popular competitive players on that roster. So really, I would look out for all of China, pretty much. And then Chinoise and Maverick have a lot of competitive experience as well.
Speaking of HCT, Cora, and you knew I was going to bring this up at some point.
Please do speak of it.
Europe versus NA.
Yeah, I'm aware.
How do we do in that little?
Oh, Europe did great. Europe got 3 players through, if I do recall correctly. Hoy won the whole thing. But I would like to point out that for the first time ever, I picked somebody who actually got through to Worlds. My choice was Ant. So I'd call us about even.
Okay.
Also, I did pick Kalento in playoffs, so,
My pick was RDU.
I did okay.
But if he didn't have to play against Kalento, then we would have had him 4. Anyways, let's take a look at the game at hand.
Shoulda, woulda, coulda.
Cora, why don't you tell us the Hearthstone Global Games format?
Why, thank you. I'd love to. So it looks complicated, but it's really not. It's 4 players per team. Each player gets 2 unique classes. And from there, it plays out just like a best-of-5 blind pick conquest format match would. And if we go to game number 5, that's where one of the players comes in for a second time as the ace. They then have the choice of playing the class that they did not play previously in the series, as well as that 9th class, which in this case looks to be Warlock for both of these teams.
Happy now?
Thank you, I am. Yes. I was happy before, just a little jilted, but now I feel like I've done my job and happy.
First game is going to be Arne versus Lovely Chuk. Arne on the Shaman and Lovely Chuk on the Warrior.
Okay, so Shaman did just get a little small change in the form of the elemental tags that have been added to several minions now that Quest Rogue also has been nerfed. So Jade Shaman and like Jade Elemental Shaman, I imagine, is stronger now that Jade Spirit is an elemental, but not knowing that that was going to happen before it actually rolled out today, I would expect that this would just be Bloodlust Token Shaman.
Yeah, it's been a bit of an interesting week for the players as far as deck submissions go. Again, we've mentioned it a few times. The caverns below the card was banned this week in the Hearthstone Global Games because of the upcoming change. And again, the players weren't aware. I wasn't aware of the fact that the elementals were being added to Shaman. And here we go. Pirate Warrior from Lovely Chuke. This is looking like it's probably a token Shaman from Arne, but it could actually be anything.
It is possible. You see 2 copies of Jade Claws, 2 copies of Manatide Totem in the Bloodlust token build, but you would also see that in just your traditional Jade Elemental deck. So I'm going to stick by it and say this is probably Bloodlust tokens, but we'll have to see. And then Pirate Warrior, of course, is rather standardized by now.
Yeah, of course. A lot of solid performances from Pirate Warrior recently. I believe we're at the point now where it's about 50-50 in Pirate Warrior, Taunt Warrior in the big tournaments. HCT again, I think 5 Pirate Warriors, 5 Taunt Warriors, both seeing a lot of play at their own. I believe Pirate Warrior was more successful last week in Shanghai with Quest Warrior going 6-11. And Pirate Warrior, going 10-6.
Okay, so yes, definitely more successful.
Much better score.
But if you look at how these decks line up against each other, assuming that this is an aggressive Shaman, which we're still not actually positive about, it still could be either deck.
Flame Tongue Totem is a big nod to it.
Yeah, it is a big nod to the aggressive Shaman build. So both of these decks want to gain a board state early and then just pressure out their opponent, really tempo out with aggression. So, looking at both of these hands, Lovely Chuke has a more aggressive start. Now with the Firefly pickup, Arne has a great start as well. This is really going to come down to who has the last minion standing, right? Because it's going to be a lot of minion combat on board. Weapons are going to be certainly incredibly valuable because you want to preserve your minion pressure as much as possible. And then eventually one team will be left with a minion on board. They'll be able to sort of swing the game in their favor.
Right. One thing that I found when watching this matchup is that obviously the token Shaman has the ability to go very wide, and that's something that one aggro deck can kind of use to get the upper hand on the other aggro deck, so they can go wide, it can make better trades. The downfall is the fact that the Warrior has a lot of weapon upgrades constantly, so the Shaman does have to rely on taunts, but even Taunt Totem can do the trick. Stonehill Defender obviously helps a lot as well.
I mean, the taunt presence from the Shaman build it's incredibly relevant, right? Because Stoneclaw Totem can just prevent 2 damage, but in most cases, the Warrior's forced to overkill it with a weapon of sorts.
Right.
And then Stonehill can give you Thing from Below, or can give you Hot Spring Guardian, which can heal you. You have 2 copies of Thing from Below in the build already. So that's really where the Shaman is going to shine against the Warrior. But like you said, the Warrior has consistent weapon pressure and damage that can just swing the game out of control for the Shaman early on if they don't have enough resources of their own. Really unfortunate taunt discover options there for Belgium.
Yeah, it does help when the Shaman actually gets taunts that they want, not Silverback Patriarchs.
Strictly worse than Stonehill Defenders.
It's a beast.
Okay.
Not that that helps in any way whatsoever. Sure. That's just me being pedantic there.
I mean, it's a fact. So China just going to continue pressuring out Belgium. If Belgium can get over this line of sorts to where they can consistently play taunt minions, then they'll be able to reduce the pressure enough from Lovely Chuke that they should start to stabilize. But they're not quite at that point yet. They're still going to be taking a good amount of damage here.
Yeah. Lovely Chuke doing a great job as the Warrior of just beating down that Shaman.
It's a great pickup as well. You didn't really want to forego your damage spells until you know that you're going to be using them to finish the game. So Bloodsail Cultist has added pressure.
Now that Rusty Hook is a 3-3. It's going to be a Fiery War Axe at the end of this turn after it's swung in. Leroy and Mortal Strike and Heroic Strike, so much burst damage ready to go in the hand. It's going to be up to that Fen Creeper to stop as much damage as possible.
Okay, so Mortal Strike, Heroic Strike, that's going to be 8. Leroy, an additional 6. So 14 damage in hand.
Ooh.
5 in this turn would be lethal then over 3 turns, unfortunately, simply because of the mana cost of the hand or Lovely Juke. Actually, 2 turns. I lied. Leroy Jenkins on 5, and then Mortal Strike, Heroic Strike
That's risky,
on 6 if a taunt is not put in the way.
It's risky because China are kind of playing into a potential Bloodlust.
Yes.
Though as long as the Bloodlust doesn't represent lethal, I guess that's fine. Look at this. Some exact maths being done here. You counted up to 18. Well, that's the health total that Lovely Chuk has just put our Arne on. Fen Creeper unplayable still. But Lovely Chuk does know there's a taunt in Arne's hand, so he knows that it's going to appear at some point.
Okay, so Barnes coming into the hand now for Arne.
I wonder.
What do you think that's really targeting?
So Barnes is something that I think a few players have been experimenting with recently because it's a 4-drop that can bring out a like 6 mana 1/1. You then evolve that board,
Gotcha.
and you get a huge board of stats. But a lot of the time, it will just get you a 1 mana 1/1 or a 2 mana 1/1.
But even if it nets you a Mana Tide Totem or a Flame Tongue Totem,
yeah, that's good.
You can draw some value out of that. So China going all in here,
Picking up a
hoping
second Mortal Strike too.
upon all hopes that Belgium does not have a way to shut down this damage.
Unfortunately for Lovely Chuk, Fen Creeper is playable now and does do enough for now.
So Fen Creeper comes down. You're getting rid of this Leroy, whether you trade in 2 1/1s or the 2/2 Jade Golem, I don't think makes too much of a difference.
Yeah.
Because there's no Whirlwind effects in the Warrior deck.
Yes, you trade in the 2/2 to make your Bloodlust better.
And then China would have to Heroic Strike down the Fen Creeper. They'd be left with
I wonder.
2 Mortal Strikes, which would be just shy of lethal damage.
Arne absolutely does have to put down the Fen Creeper this turn, though. He's taking a lot of time listening to his teammates by the looks of things. Okay.
Wow.
That's risky.
I mean, you still have the
That's the 1/1 I was talking about.
25% roll for Stoneclaw if you want it.
Nope.
Okay, so Mortal Strike, Heroic Strike, Face is going to end this game for China.
Well, Belgium took a risk.
This is setting up a 2-turn lethal from Belgium.
Yeah.
So I can understand why they would want to sort of go on the counter-aggressive, because they know that there's not many combinations that could actually mean that they're dead this turn.
Mortal Strike wasn't even necessary. Even that South Sea deckhand picked up by Lovely Chuk would have done the job.
It would have.
Lovely Chuk takes game number 1, one step closer to the round of 8. Belgium going to need to start coming back very soon, or they'll end up in the same position as Greece.
It was a risky play there from Belgium, but I think it was calculated, right? Because they figured there that the Warrior deck had more opportunities to kill them the more time that they gave them. So if they could just close out the game in 2 turns and the Warrior didn't have lethal damage that they needed there, maybe they had Dread Corsairs in hand or more weapon upgrades that wouldn't quite get the job done, then they could counter swing and kill in 2 turns.
Yeah.
So I understand why Belgium went for the play that they did there. Unfortunately, this time it was punished.
Makes sense when you put it that way. It was such a risky decision, but you're right. When you do set up 2-turn lethal. That's just how you play Hearthstone. Next up is going to be Chinoise versus Nightwalk, both on the Paladin. This time, Nightwalk actually deciding to pass up on the Rogue, which makes sense. Not everyone is keen to play with Miracle Rogue. And I spoke to Chinoise on the other side before, and I said to him, how do you feel about having to create a lineup without Quest Rogue? And he actually said to me, we don't feel that confident with Quest Rogue, so we're not complaining.
Really? Okay. I think that's something that maybe we don't see quite so often from the professional players, because they have spent so much time on Quest Rogue, crafting lineups for Conquest, non-team tournaments that do rely on having the strongest decks in the format, which Quest Rogue certainly was one of. But for teams that would prefer to play other decks, this could be very beneficial.
The thing is, it was one of the strongest decks, but it was also one of the highest skill cap decks. It's something that a lot of people overlook. It's easy to lose to an early, like a quest completed on turn 3 and then lose on turn 4. It's easy to have that happen and think, oh, the deck's easy to play, but it really isn't. There are so many micro decisions that go into playing it. So take a look at Chinoise and Nightwalk both getting ready to play their game. Looks like a... What is that in the background on Nightwalk's webcam there?
Looks to be a computer.
Right.
Yeah, it's a nice case. I like it.
Just weird that it's in the background.
And not what he's playing on. I mean, maybe he has an extra. You never know.
Just has a spare lying around.
Your computer might crash. Your graphics card
And you need to play the Hearthstone
and you need to play Hearthstone. And there you go. You have a second one. We're just waiting for China to be ready to get this game underway. Paladin mirror, almost pointless to speculate really what this could be and how it adds up. There's a wide range of aggro mid-range control.
We were just talking earlier today about how close the mix is as well. Like control, N'Zoth, aggro mid-range.
I mean, you can be justified certainly in bringing any of those builds, whether it be the most aggressive Murloc Paladin to the most controlling N'Zoth Paladin. So honestly, this is a class I think where it really comes down to comfort picks and what you enjoy playing.
Again, you could argue that with the lack of Quest Rogue this week, maybe control paladins are a little bit stronger than they used to be. Maybe there's more reason to bring them than there was in the past, because you're not specifically trying to play around that one deck.
I think that's very valid.
That's something to take into account. Also, the slower paladins are... I'd like to say the slower paladins are favored against the faster ones, but often the faster ones will just win in the first like 5 turns.
Yeah, I mean the slow ones really need to get Doomsayer on turn 2, then they have True Silver on turn 4, and Equality Consecration combos, Pyro Consecration.
Once
Pyro
they get
Equality.
to their Primordial Drakes, they're in a much stronger position.
Yes,
but
you really need to counteract the first 4 or 5 turns of the game, and that can require some very specific resources, and oftentimes you just don't get those specific resources, even if you do hard mulligan for them. So let's see what it is going to be. Looks to be Murlocs for Chinoy's securely in the Murloc pool. Nightwalk, probably going to be Murlocs as well, but Rallying Blade signals to me that they're trying to counter some more aggressive decks as well.
Okay, well Rallying Blade also has always, to me, indicated that it's a slightly faster deck, though that can be wrong nowadays. In the past, I think there was more a trope for last year in Hearthstone, but this year, Rallying Blade can be found anywhere. A lot of players just think it's better than True Silver Champion in this meta. Let's see, hopefully the mulligan will give us a better idea. Nope, no idea at all. Okay.
I mean, Consecration does mean that it's likely going to be more mid-range base, but then you see Grimscale Shaman in the opener, and now that's a trigger for more aggression. So Deathwing over from Chinoy's means that we're going to be seeing the Curator undoubtedly, and that's one of the things that you can pull. It's like a reset button.
A lot of these paladins have started running just one big dragon. Like, yeah, they run Primordial Drake, but then some of them have been putting in Deathwing, some of them have been putting in Onyxia, right back from, I think it was Zalay, was it DreamHack? It may have been Starladder. It was one of those two events. He put Onyxia in, and since then it's been experimented with a little bit, but it looks like Deathwing has been settled on as the better of the two dragons.
It's just a big body that also blows everything up. And you can play Onyxia and have a large board, but if your opponent has a large board at the same time, you can be dead on the backswing. With Deathwing, that doesn't usually happen. Makes it a lot more difficult, at least.
So Repentance, Noble Sacrifice, and Redemption are the 3 secrets that popped up here. Noble Sacrifice can be pretty good against aggressive Murloc Paladin decks. You know that your opponent is an aggressive deck because of the Grimscale Chum.
I don't think we're going with Repentance because the Murloc health is already going to be relatively low. Redemption has some value, but Noble Sacrifice does just seem like the easier pick there. And Belgium went with the coin on the Hydrologist, leading into the Rockpool Hunter, ideally on turn 2, but obviously this Grimscale Chum going to trade in, which does actually surprise me a little bit. If the Vilefin Inquisitor had come down, the Grimscale wouldn't have gone in, but Rockpool Hunter for the Chinese team there then would have meant that a 3-1 would have been left on board.
Right. Yeah, it was a little bit surprising. Chinoy's obviously wanted to get that secret ready, and now it kind of pays off because he can do this. Almost guarantee the Rockpool Hunter buff next turn, although it won't if China play Rallying Blade here, which it looks like they probably will.
I mean, it may not be quite so cut and dry.
Yeah.
You did see them hovering over the Murloc Tidecaller and the Rockpool Hunter, build up their own large board presence.
Gives you a 3-3 and a 2-3. It's got to be tempting.
Because if Rockpool comes down for Belgium next turn, then they're playing off curve. Murloc War Leader could come down, buff the Vilefin up to a 2-4. But then you have Rallying Blade to kill that off.
This works nicely. Next turn, Nightwalker can just play both Murlocs plus the Secret.
Anytime you can keep an aggressive deck off the board, you're happy about it.
Yeah. Ooh, Belgium. Chinoy is picking up Grimescale Chum, perfectly on curve there. You just squeeze that in, maybe play the Rockpool Hunter that gets buffed. And this is really important because it buffs up the Rockpool Hunter so that it's just out of range of both the Hydrologist and the Rallying Blade.
Makes it quite annoying. Consecration here is effective, but you really don't want to pull the trigger on a board clear when it's just 2 minions on the board.
There are a lot of good options, actually. Rockpool Hunter to buff up the Hydrologist to make that 3-4 trade. Then Rallying Blade can get rid of the Grimescale Charm. That's another way of clearing the board.
Yeah, you can Murloc Tidecaller, Rockpool, the Hydrologist, and then put down Noble Sacrifice.
Yeah.
You clear the board, and you get to keep your own board.
I like this a lot.
This is spiraling a little bit out of control for Belgium. They do have the better late game cards in hand, but late game doesn't mean much if you can't play it.
Yeah, Finja being picked up, very important though, because I was looking at the Spike Ridge Steed before thinking, when is Chinoy ever going to get to play that? Well, now it's guaranteed. Finja into Spike Ridge Steed is a great combo. Even if that Noble Sacrifice is still there, big deal. Finja just gets rid of that 2-1, still summons some Murlocs. It's still a big taunt.
Ooh.
It still summons the Staggadon. Oh my goodness, China just keep doing it.
Okay, so the one slight reprieve is that they have not had their own Vilefin Inquisitor, meaning that the hero power does not summon Murlocs at this point, but this is going to allow for 2 clean clears, and Belgium still has no way to remove China's board after this.
Yeah.
If you trade in, you're playing around Murloc Warleader, Rockpool Hunter. You could just hit 5 to face.
Yeah, sure, why not? Let's just go with that. Okay.
The Silverhand Murloc would have to trade into the Murloc Warleader, and then the Tidecaller would be the second target to kill off anyway.
Yeah, there's still the Noble Sacrifice down too. So I was looking at the face, just sorry, at the trade, just like you were there. But yeah,
I like the damage push.
Nightwalk was looking at the face, and
I think that the trade would have been just a little bit too defensive. Certainly justifiable, but you only have 2 cards in hand, and they're not the best cards, meaning that this board needs to get a lot of work done.
with Consecration from Nightwalk next turn, he has 15 damage ready to go. So he can put Chinoy's down to 5. But then Finja with the Spike Ridge Steed will put a wall in the way. So this game isn't over yet. Still a little bit more work that Nightwalk has to do, as Chinoy's makes the obvious play this turn, I expect. If he plays Rallying Blade, I'll be very surprised.
I mean, if he blades, then he has to play Finja on 5, or on 6, excuse me, and then Spike Ridge will come down on 7. So while you're taking a lot of damage this turn,
17
Spike
damage.
Ridge Steed will hopefully allow you to stabilize at very low health.
Ouch.
Oh, man.
Okay, so these Murlocs are completely out of control, but don't forget, when Finja trades, I can't actually kill them.
It can't kill the War Leader. It would have to go into the rock pool.
Ah, that's a problem. Never mind. I was about to say it's not so bad, but it is that bad.
It's bad.
Yeah.
This is bad. So Spike Ridge Steed comes down on Finja. Finja kills off either the Rock Pool Hunter or the Cold Light.
I don't think it particularly matters which.
Yeah, I don't think there's any heal really.
I think usually you go for the
Adapt
damage one
wouldn't-
because of that.
Yeah. This is the play though.
Yeah.
Okay, well, to be fair, Finja into Rallying Blade into Murloc War Leader, and then Finja into the War Leader, followed by Stonehill Defender.
Oh, that's interesting.
Is an option,
Yeah.
but you might just be dead on the backswing in that case.
Well, yeah, okay. So we're not quite dead yet. There's no way Consecration and True Silver can both be played.
So the 6/5 can go into Finja, 4/4 goes into Stegadon, you consecrate, and then you have, that does 7, so Belgium's left at 4.
Yeah.
But their board's clear. And you don't lose anything.
I think it's the same whether you play True Silver or Consecrate. If you Consecrate, it deals 4 damage in total, as in to the face and to the taunt.
Yeah.
True Silver, it also deals 4 damage to the taunt or the face. Consecrate makes more sense, though, because it gets rid of the other Murlocs, leaving Chinoise once again.
And you'd rather have a 6-3 around than a 6-1 and a 4-2.
Yeah.
So this trade makes more sense.
Just leaves Chinoise in what seems like an unwinnable position. Deathwing not playable yet, and even if it was, there's still a True Silver champion.
We could be seeing a couple of very quick matches here.
I mean, after I just pointed out that my team won the first game, I don't really want this to be a sweep as well, because then you're back on even ground with me in terms of predictions.
Oh, we kind of need that to happen.
No, we don't.
Yes, we do. Come on, you're used to casting with Raven and Sovereign. Lorinda, you know what competition is.
I started it in the first place, so I've made you make a prediction.
All right, so Chinoise just going to try to survive here. It is not going to be possible.
Nope. All right, game 2 goes to Nightwalk. 1 win away from top 8 in the Hearthstone Global game.
Already.
And Chinoise, Team Belgium, they've worked so hard to get here. They came so close from being eliminated. They're going to want to take advantage of this. They're going to want to come back now.
Well, Belgium is in the exact same position that Greece was in our last series. Down 0-2, needing to make a big reverse here to take this series. And Greece, we saw, couldn't get the job done. They fell 3-0. So Belgium needs to take the next 3 in a row over China, and that is a tall task.
Yeah, next up, it's going to be Jason Joe versus Maverick. Oh, Maverick is bringing Rogue, though. So, okay, this one I do expect to be Miracle Rogue.
I do. I think that Maverick is a very accomplished Miracle Rogue player, and we saw Czech Republic have great success with Miracle Rogue when Stan Cifka was playing it. So Maverick is going to try to replicate those results. Jason, if it's an aggro druid, which it very well could be, can sort of prey on the weakness of the rogue in that they don't have taunts, they don't have life gain. And if it's a Jade druid, you still have good interaction for the early game, and then often the rogue just can't deal with your late game potential with all of the Jade golems.
Yeah, I mean, I much prefer the matchup for the rogue if it is a Jade druid.
Yes.
It means that you have the potential to go crazy. An early Edwin is something that Druid just can't really deal with. And then if they can get Arcane Giants down before the Jade Golems get too big, that is another win condition. So it's all about getting through that deck as quickly as possible. This is so interesting. I have to admit, I'm enjoying this week so far. Just it's so different with no Quest Rogue.
If you take Quest Rogue out of the mix, then suddenly a whole wealth of potential matchups that we hadn't considered before are possible.
Right.
Simply because Miracle Rogue is now the dominant rogue archetype. And I think that really says something, that even after you take out the best rogue deck, the most competitive rogue deck in the format, people are still choosing to play rogue.
Over Warrior in this case as well. So I imagine that Maverick will have considered playing Warrior. There's no way you pair up Rogue with Warrior and then decide straight away, oh, we're not playing Warrior, because it's also one of the best classes.
Yeah, I think, you know, if you've got Taunt Warrior, for instance, and you see Jade Druid, Taunt Warrior can have a bit of a tough time against Jade Druid. Yep. Maybe you don't want to play that matchup. And if you have Pirate Warrior, I think you're much more likely to want to do that.
And when you look at how Jason Joe has paired Druid with Hunter, it does kind of give a nod towards the fact that it's not going to be an aggressive Druid. It's going to be a Jade Druid, maybe. So that's probably the conclusion that Maverick has come to. It's wrong, though. That is a token Druid.
This is a questing Miracle Rogue build.
Sure. Questing Adventurer, just...
So take out the Rogue Quest, put back in questing.
We're going to play Quest Rogue one way, okay?
You get pretty much the same thing, right? It all equals a win, hopefully, for Belgium here if they're going to stay in this series.
Belgium are going to need a good start to make a win out of this, though. Hallucination is just quite slow. Yeah, throwing away everything. I like that. Getting patches back. I don't like that.
That's a bad start for Belgium, and that's a bonkers start for China here. They can Enchanted Raven on 1, Coin Vicious Fledgling on 2, and we saw the championships this past weekend, how well Vicious Fledgling worked for Ant in his final game that actually won him his series. This card's crazy. So much so that they just reduced the encounter rates of it in Arena 50%.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Flame Strike, Vicious Fledgling.
And Abyssal Enforcer's the
And
other
Abyssal
one, right?
Enforcer.
Yeah.
Same level.
I don't play much Arena, but I think if I did, I definitely appreciate that change. Unless I was always
And
getting the Fledgling, then I'd be a little bit annoyed.
Card makes you mad.
But speaking of Fledgling, I think that's going to be coming out straight away now. Galacticrawler ready to eat up that Patches if it doesn't trade straight into something. If not, it's going to eat up a Swashbuckler later on, so guaranteed to get some value. Against this deck, though, Fledgling can be dealt with. The Rogue can backstab it. The Rogue can eviscerate it. It can even sap it occasionally, though I think a lot of Rogues just don't run sap anymore.
So we do see that this is evidently the Finja package in this aggro Druid build. So Finja, 2 copies of Murloc War Leader, 2 copies of Bluegill Warrior. I think Vicious Fledgling just makes the most sense this turn. You can coin Murloc War Leader, sort of test for backstab, because Vicious Fledgling is just even more useful, I think, in this case.
I guess there's even the consideration to hold onto the coin and coin out Finja on turn 4. Jason Joe will be slightly annoyed if he starts to draw more Murlocs now, as he won't get the full value from his Finja. That Swashbuckler probably just going to get eaten up next turn. And the Fledgling lives.
So Galacticrawler can come down as a 3/4, and Vicious Fledgling can...
Oh, and that completes this turn, right?
Yeah, that's just about as good as it can get. So you're hoping for Wind Fury here. Divine Shield's good as well.
So is Can't Be Targeted.
Yeah, Liquid Membrane means that Eviscerate and Backstab can't kill it. Coin Vile Spine Slayer for Maverick could be a lifesaver here.
Yeah, it looks like it's almost definitely the only play. If he had an Edwin or some way of taking advantage of this preparation, that would be great. But yeah, getting rid of that horrible looking 4/4. The only way that China could have prevented this was stealthing it. Which luckily for the Rogue didn't happen. But
Okay,
still.
so now China's lost a good bit of pressure.
Still get a straight trade in here though. I'm going to just drop the Wally to prepare for Finja coming up soon.
You do usually like to play Finja and then play War Leader on turn 6, but the War Leader just represents the most pressure here.
And he wanted to play something, right?
Yeah, your other option was just Bluegill Warrior Hero Power. The dagger kills the Bluegill. Hero Power doesn't accomplish much for you, and you know, if worse comes to worse, can play Finja on 5 and Savage Roar on 6 if you really want to trade.
Yeah, I mean you can play Bluegill Warrior and Savage Roar.
And that's if Belgium has something with more than 2 health on the board, which it isn't always the case.
Prep Mimic Pod, how we're going to start this turn. Let's see if he can get something more helpful than Arcane Giant. Counterfeit coins.
Well.
Oh, so he could play both right now and then play Arcane Giant. That is actually...
It's like getting 2 mana.
Yeah.
Is that what you want to go with? The Vermin Sensei is just a 5 mana 4/5. It buffs beasts.
Hope for something good. Mark of your Siraj, not quite as good as maybe Maverick was hoping for. Okay.
That was one of the many tools given to Druid, hoping that Beast Druid would be a deck.
All of the Beast synergy in this Rogue deck right now.
That's true.
Well, you just drop Finja, right?
The Vermin Sensei will trade into the War Leader, and then Finja can kill either of the minions on board if the Swashbuckler lives.
So to play around that, I imagine Jason Joe trades the War Leader into the Swashbuckler, then hits face with the Galacticrawler. That way, Maverick can only deal with one of these minions.
You can also just get aggressive here, Bluegill Warrior and Savage Roar.
Ooh.
How much damage are we looking at? That would be 11...
18, 17, I think.
17, 19, because you get
on the hit
damage
face
to face
too,
as well. And then you could look at just Swipe isn't out. It's probably the best Savage Roar you're going to get, actually. So I like this.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got a good read on what's in Maverick's hand. You saw one of the counterfeit coins come out, so if you were paying attention to what was Mimic Potted, you know that there's another one in hand, and you know that one of the cards is a random card off of Swashbuckler, and there are a lot of really useless Druid cards.
Yeah. There are a lot of useless cards in every class, and that's one of the problems with Swashbuckler, is that it has just as high a chance as grabbing one of those as one of the cards that...
It's very rare that you hit pay dirt with Swashbuckler.
It's not quite like the Priest cards that steal, where you get directly from your opponent's deck. Double Eviscerate would be helpful if you weren't just about to lose. Maverick gonna trade in, and Belgium
concession here.
Eliminated from the Hearthstone Global Games. China get through to top 8 with our second sweep of the day.
Talk about a fast couple of first matches to the day. We have 6 matches total for you guys today, so it was going to be a longer day, at least we thought. But now with 2 3-0 sweeps, it's been a quick couple of first matches. I do have to say it is the favored teams, I think, that did come out on top.
Yep, that's
and we are 1-1. Which is good in our caster predictions. Now we don't have to fight about this all day long. But China...
Oh, we do later on. But
China just ran away with this one, plain and simple.
All right, well, there is a reminder of how this went down. Lovely Shoot, Nightwalk, Jason Joe getting their wins. Arne, Chinoise, and Maverick not quite able to pick up a game. Unfortunately, Belgium have now been eliminated from the Hearthstone Global Games. We are getting through these teams very quickly. Bit of a slaughter, really.
Yeah, it kind of has been. But, you know, China, I said it before when we were looking at just the players on the team. China is a storied Hearthstone team with some of the most fantastic Hearthstone competitors in the world, not only in the Chinese region. And when you're putting them head-to-head against a team like Belgium, which does have some popular names, but, you know, not nearly the level of experience or popularity from the Chinese Hearthstone players, I think that this is the result that you are expecting to see, similar to Czech Republic versus Greece.
It's just, today has just been as close to, I think, a bloodbath as you're ever going to see in Hearthstone.
I mean, it really has just been, none of the teams have done anything really detrimental. There was a small misplay even from Stancifka from the Czech Republic, but it didn't ultimately end up costing them the game. Everything else was just rather straightforward.
As we see China taking their second game here, Nightwalk with his Paladin, just being too fast for Chinoise to be able to do anything. And finally, Jason Joe with the vicious fledgling start into the Finger. No, wait, Finger wasn't even played, was it?
It was the
Savage
War Leader on the board, and then the Bluegill Savage Roar. Yeah, and I think this does illustrate what these teams have done best, is they know when to push aggression and when not to play too defensively, right? We saw China do that as well in the Paladin mirror when they pushed face for 5 instead of trading into the Hydrologist on the board. So China, they're really illustrating some nice high-level play, knowing when not to be too defensive, but ultimately, it was their series to win.
We are going to have a chat with one of the players from China. Hey, Jason Joe, how are you doing? Congratulations on your win. Can you hear me? Now, it looks like we are having communication difficulties. Unfortunately, we'll try and get that fixed. We'll try and get that fixed up for you in just a moment.
He looks great. I'm sure he'd sound great too.
Unfortunately,
we can't hear him.
Can you do it, Jason Joe? How are you feeling, Jason Joe?
I'm feeling great. I'm feeling like we just won, and that's about as good as it gets.
Great.
I think would be probably the generalized answer there.
Let's take a look at the bracket one more time of the top 16 of the Hearthstone Global Games. China and Czech Republic now through to the top 8. They'll be competing with each other next week. These guys, the rest of them you saw on page 1, will be playing on Thursday. But this is the rest of today that you can see right now. Mexico, Italy, South Korea, Malaysia, Ukraine, Austria, Netherlands, and Brazil, all still yet to play.
I'm excited for a couple of these matches. We've got some really good ones. Obviously, I've been only on the U.S. side of the broadcasts, so we've been playing every Thursday, and we've had mostly Latin America, South American teams, and Asia Pacific. So I think there's some great teams that maybe you guys haven't seen on this portion of the broadcast coming up for later today.
Right, now we are going to be going to a 2-hour break now, unfortunately. We'll be back at 1:30 CEST with the other 4 games that we've got coming up today. So go, take a break, and come back and join us then.
We're almost there. Quiet down, everyone. This is not like any of our previous expeditions. This will be far more ambitious. We're stepping into a land of primordial wonder. Infused with astonishing elemental energies. The plant life here holds very unusual properties. So don't touch anything. And while you may be excited to see the local fauna, you might want to make sure they don't see you. Because their powers of adaptation are devastating. Make no mistake, we will be tested at every turn. But if we stay on our guard, we might just survive. Now then, are you ready? Then let's journey into Ongoro Crater.